Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and greetings, everybody, and welcome to this night's edition of the Viberarian Show. I'm your host, the Viberarian, Joelle. I'm so glad that you are joining me this evening for our nightly Thursday night gathering. I believe that knowledge is power, and every Thursday evening I set out to explore the mysteries and mundane of the world around us. So it's kind of like a cross between Indiana Jones and the X-Files. There's no subject that is really off limits, and I love it when I get to have people come on and we get to talk about the stuff that fascinates and interests me. The Viberarian Show is on the Viberarian Radio Network, which is part of the Blog Talk Radio family, and you can call in during the show at 646-668-8988. Press 1 if you have a question for any of our panelists this evening. And then you can also join me on my Facebook page. I brought together a community I like to call the Good Vibe Tribe. And the purpose of the community is to uplift, elevate, and enlighten. So you will find articles, events, classes, workshops, and just general good times. You can find the community by searching for the Viberarian. That's V as in vibe, I-B-E as in energy, R-A-R-I-A-N. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter with the same @handle. Check us out. I'm always trying to send positive pictures and things that I think are going to make your day just a little bit brighter. And if you see something that you think would raise everyone's vibe, be sure to tag me in it. I'd love to be able to share and pass along the little piece of positivity. Now, every Thursday night from 9 o'clock until I guess we get tired, I get to bring together a group of people. And tonight I have a wonderful panelist of people who have also appeared on my Tuesday show, the Psychic Inside Show. Every Tuesday I bring out people who are willing to share their story about their journey into discovering their psychic gifts and abilities. And the whole purpose of this is to allow you to see what someone else's life looked like, because you may not recognize your own gifts and abilities as being psychic. And my goal is that as people share their childhood and their early development into understanding more about who they were, that something might just tickle you and you say, oh my gosh, that happens to me too. I guess maybe I am psychic after all. So these guests tonight have all appeared on the previous show, and you can catch up on their stories on the Viberary YouTube channel, and that's Viberary. I don't have a page name yet because YouTube doesn't think I have enough supporters to allow me to claim my little piece of real estate. So if you would click over and like, comment, and share and subscribe, at some point I'll be able to claim my name. But for now, if you just search for the Viberary, you will find all of the shows that have been broadcast, all of the psychic stories, and all of our topical explorations. So tonight I'm joined by 3 really wonderful and amazing psychics and mediums and channels. And I'd like to introduce to you first my most recent guest on the Psychic Inside Show on Tuesday was Scott Hall. Scott Hall is an intuitive channel, and he is here in the metro Atlanta area. And I had a wonderful discussion with you on Tuesday. Scott, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thanks for having me again. I feel like I never left.
I know. I feel like we've been talking ever since. That's one of the things I love about getting to be nosy and ask you questions about your life. It really does bring about a sense of understanding as you shared your story with us on Tuesday evening. And I'm just so appreciative that you agreed to come back, because it kind of set a ball into motion for this topic that we're going to be addressing, because it had come up with both of the other guests who were on the show. Now, I'm also joined tonight by Burnett Sherman. Burnett, you are an author, a psychic medium, and a channel, and you have the Spirit Speaks YouTube channel, where you have been sharing channeled messages from people who range from, I think, the 1700s through the 1950s and 60s. And this is a project that you shared with us during your interview that is quite fascinating. I'm really very happy to have you come back on tonight, Burnett.
Thank you so much, Joelle. And I'm excited to be here and to be with the other 2 guests who we have other connections. So this is going to be a fun night.
It's amazing how things line up because all three of the guests this evening were sitting within a few feet of each other at this last weekend psychic fair at the Big Blue Barn up in Roswell, Georgia. And so the other person who is joining us this evening is Adrianna Wallace. And Adrianna is also a healer, a psychic medium, and channel. And I've been learning some tips and tricks from her about connecting in that fashion ever since she shared during her interview about her channeling ability. So, Adrianna, welcome to the show this evening.
Hi, Joelle. Thank you so much for having me on, and I am excited, to be on with Scott and Burnett at the same time. So it's going to be fun, just like she said. I'm really I'm ready for it.
Well, as you may have gleaned to our listening audience, tonight our topic is channeling. And I want to explore this topic, put some definitions out there, and look at what channeling means. And I was sharing with everyone just before we came on the air, I had always seen or heard channeling as something in the horror movies where they would all of a sudden, the person would change demeanor, and next thing you know, some kind of negative or demonic thing, like in who was it? The Amityville Horror. The thing said, "Get out," and the person's face contorted and changed. It was a very frightening kind of thing for me to see. So as I started getting out onto YouTube over the years and started looking into esoteric subjects, I would always see channeled messages. There were feed after feed, post after post of people channeling messages, channeling angels, channeling God. And it just I was a little bit hesitant to get into that realm because I didn't really understand what channeling is. So let's start out to give each of you an opportunity to share what is channeling in terms of how you view it. And so let's say, Scott, you're the minority this evening, the minority male voice, so let's start with you.
I don't know if I was a minority of how many entities I channel or what you meant. So channeling for me really is it when because I was just thinking about that while you're describing it, and for me it's how the energy comes through. Like I could have information come through in different ways, but with channeling, it feels like like a river, like a channel, like a flow. It flows, and when I channel, I just feel like I get out of the way more. There's less interpretation or almost no interpretation. It's not my personality. It's just coming through me, and I don't get all animate. My body doesn't change so much, but the speed infliction of my voice may change, and the tone. Like the other day, last weekend rather, I channeled a guide, which I don't normally channel guides necessarily, but he wanted the information coming through in a particular way, so I had a really low voice. I delivered it very straight, nothing, no punches pulled. That dude just talked through me. So that's, to me, the biggest difference. Is it just feels like flow.
Mm-hmm. And you said that you first started being aware of channeled messages when you were journaling to yourself. It was almost like Spirit began to speak to you in what you were writing, and that's when you recognized, this is something extra.
Right. I was in a bad state, suicidal, very depressed, and the positive information was coming through that was not my personality at the time, because the way I felt, the ego of Scott felt horrible, and I would never have said those nice things to myself. And these entities were saying, "You're a wonderful person, you're beautiful, you have so much to give to people," and the opposite of what I would have said. So I knew it was not coming from me. It was words I heard clearly in my head, and I just started writing them down. So that's where it all started for me with channeling.
Now, Burnett, I don't remember I remember you sharing about how your latest project came about, but I don't remember how you first came into awareness of channeling as what you were doing in the realm of psychic work.
Interestingly enough, I didn't consider myself really channeling intentionally until I would write, and a lot like Scott, I didn't have a completely different. My experience was more that I would be writing and thinking and, pondering, and then suddenly I'm writing so fast that I can't keep up because it's just flowing through that fast. And I realized this is not me. This is not my thinking that I'm writing down, because I'll go back and read it and I have to transcribe it. But it was channeling that. And that happened, probably over 10 years ago for the first time. So it's been a long time, but actually speaking using my voice and myself and my body in a different way to allow a voice to come through me, that is much more recent. That's within the past couple of years, and then most intentionally with the Spirit Speaks project, where I really let myself step aside to allow these entities to express themselves while still being more of a viewer.
Now, let me ask you, you also are a published author. So when you were writing what became your books, this was a different kind of flow than you getting into the story that you were telling then? Or was it very similar to your creative flow coming forward?
Yes and no. So in the sense that I believe that I always have a muse, so some kind of inspirational source that's helping me, because clearly I can't just come up with these ideas completely on my own. And when I did Chosen, I do believe that some of it was Spirit just kind of speaking the story through me, using me kind of to say the story and give the story and write it out. And some parts, you as a writer, you just got to plug through it and and make it work. But there were parts, and I believe that in order to write as much as I did, I had to have some help. And it was different than when I'm writing, and it's more of just a thinking, and I'm not really writing a story, and that kind of channeling, which has more life theme overtones than writing fiction.
So you've learned to feel a difference in when you're writing what is happening.
Yes, it's usually the speed and the pace. It's words coming so fast that you look at your paper, unless I'm typing it out, if I'm handwriting it, you can barely read it. And usually that's when I've been channeling, because it's just coming through so fast.
And I guess some people call that automatic writing. Would you also say that's what you would come to know as automatic writing?
I would not describe it as that, because I'm very aware. So I hear the words, I'm writing the words, I know I'm writing the words, I know they're speaking fast, I know it's coming through. So it's not like I disconnect and I look down and there's stuff there, which is, my understanding of automatic writing is, you put your hand down, things get written, then you look back and see what's there. In my experience, I'm aware.
Okay, I understand the difference then in how you're describing it.
Right.
Now, Adrianna, you also channel, and would you share a little bit about what you are doing when you are opening to channel?
Yes, actually, that was very interesting what she just said about kind of stepping aside. It's not like I have an experience to where I've always kind of done this, where it's almost like your ego personality, like it's almost like I step aside. And I don't remember when I started doing this, but it was like when I was very young. It was almost like a feeling of no emotion, nothingness, but like a pure, like loving, like connected to God source energy. And that's usually when I start receiving information. And I know it's not me because it's almost like I step aside and it's like, all right, like right now when I do my readings, I'm like, all right, my ego is going to step aside and I'm going to be using my body as a vessel for spirit, but it's not like spirit enters my body. That's a whole different thing. It's more of just I'm allowing spirit to use my body as a tool to communicate what it wants to communicate to my clients, if that makes any sense. So there's very much a feeling of no emotion. And I don't want to say the word dissociation, but that's the closest word that I can come up with how it feels. It's almost like I'm resonating at a higher, or I'm vibrating at a higher frequency. So I have to kind of, I'm trying to describe this in a way. I have to kind of step aside and let that energy kind of do its thing. Because if I didn't do that, it wouldn't flow, if that makes any sense. But I just remember as a child, and it would be my imagination, like I'm connecting to, I would lay down in bed and imagine that I was traveling like up, like I was going up into space. I remember thinking like I'm going to visit, Neptune, or I'm visiting Uranus, or I'm visiting Mars. I think it's actually pronounced Uranus, but whatever. And I would feel more of like a dissociation, but then I would also receive. Okay, so it was a comforting feeling. It was. I realized later when I started working that that's actually what I was doing, is I was channeling. And I don't know, it's a very comforting feeling to me. It's very much like connecting my energy to source and receiving that love and also sharing that with clients.
So
but
now,
there's no emotion. So it's very hard to describe. My ego is not in it, if that makes any sense.
Well, it does make sense. It's interesting because each of you kind of, from what I've learned of you, experience different things. Because I know, Burnett, on like your Spirit Speaks channel, when you have channeled these deceased people who experience very painful lives, and they're coming through in order to have their messages delivered, there certainly is a lot of emotions, and that it appears in your face and in body language, and it definitely transmits to us as a viewer. And I mean, can you share a little bit about the project that you have with the Spirit Speaks channeling sessions?
Sure. So that project, we started it back in March, and we recorded 16 sessions initially. 14 and then 2 more, so we had 16 sessions. And it was very much letting myself be a vessel for these entities, these people who've crossed over, who needed to have a voice, most of them being people who were in marginalized communities or who impacted marginalized communities. And so, a Native American came through, someone who practiced paganism. She didn't come through, but a minister who was associated with that and who was involved with what I would consider tormenting those who were pagans. She came through, and people who were killed at the hands of others back in the 50s and the 1800s and the 1700s. And they really came through to give a voice and to finally be heard. And a lot of them had a lot of emotion, still have a lot of emotion tied to that experience that they wanted to express. And in those first sessions, I allowed that. And it was very difficult because while I'm letting them use me, I'm there. It's like I'm sitting in the room with them. If that makes if that can visualize, we're in the room together and they're speaking, that room is my head or something. And and so while they're speaking, I feel everything that they're pouring forth. And so it was very physically and emotionally and mentally engaging. And it was also difficult, which is why in the last 2 of those first 16, I did it a bit differently, more of a medium channel versus a physical channel, in order to, one, allow me to do more without it being such an emotionally stressful experience, so that we could really get the information without it pulling so much out of, not out of me, but I would just feel it. I would feel their sadness, feel their pain, feel their hurt. And
yeah, it looked very intense from observing.
And it was very intense. That's the word. It was very intense. But it was also a very necessary project, I think, because a lot of the people who came through would not have been heard otherwise. And each of their stories is different. Each of their experiences is different. And I think what we can learn from them transcends even those individual lives, and we could look at our greater society and our culture and the things that are happening right now and say, can we learn from this? Can we learn from those experiences and not repeat history?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an important project.
In that project, you're definitely channeling from the human experience, not, who have passed on to another plane. And I do see a lot of people out there who are channeling angelic energy or archangels or ascended masters. Have any of you experienced that kind of energy come through in your channelings?
Yes. And that's Burnett speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have, so.
Yeah, I have not channeled angels, just normal stuff like aliens and things.
Normal stuff.
Well, we're going to circle around to that next. Now, I just want to ask then, when you encounter angelic energy, Adrianna, do you still feel like a detached? Because I've heard people say that it is the most overwhelmingly loving energy that comes in when that channel connection happens.
It's very much, and I know that she was saying, it's almost like a back and forth. I know that she was saying that she was feeling a lot of those emotions strongly, and then she kind of had to go to more of a medium standpoint where she didn't feel all those emotions. So I still feel that detachment. There is very much I am detached, and it's a no emotion feeling. Like it's more of informational. It feels almost like I don't know how to describe it as far as, it's almost like a high. It feels like that, to where you're not emotional, but you're very much involved mentally with the information that you're receiving. And that way, when yourself is not involved, you're feeling the energy of what they want to project. So that way, when I'm doing a reading, I know if I'm feeling something, it's not coming from me. It's coming from either my client or the person that I'm speaking with on the other side, which would be an angel or a guide or a deceased loved one. And that is a very necessary part of mediumship that I feel is just, it depends on where you're channeling from, because different people channel different ways. And you can very much channel from your crown chakra and your heart chakra at the same time, or well, I didn't want to say at the same time. It's almost like it's a mix. So some readers will switch back and forth. Some people will channel from their heart chakra or their sacral or their solar plexus. It very much depends on the energetic resonance of the person, of that soul, and how they function and how they work. So my experience with that has been, as far as angelic energy, very, like, I feel the presence more. I know that it's an angelic energy. I feel what they project onto me, but I don't have a reaction, because if I do have a reaction, then I'm not in my channeling space, because then I have my ego, if that makes any sense. So whatever I experience after I shut down or after I end the session, that's me. And I very much have felt that before. I very much cried from having, so much joy. I've experienced, sorrow from, a lot of pain. I mean, and it's very much after the session is over, to where my self gets displaced and then it's back in this vessel, if that makes any sense.
It does. It sounds similar to how Burnett you were saying, being in the room, observing, moving out of the way for that energy then to come through. And
right.
When you have expressed angelic, is it different from the human medium and channeling in your experience, Burnett?
So if I channel someone who's not human, it's usually a guide, so someone's a spirit guide. And then I don't know if I want to call them an alien, but I guess that would be technically the word, but they're also ascended. They're far advanced. The group Seth or Setha that I've begun channeling as well. And that is it's very different, because they're not interested in the mundane. So they got my attention immediately by posing a question that, shocked me when I first began that, what you call relationship. And it does feel different, because with them it's not really emotional at all. Unlike when I'm connecting with a human entity for humans, I do engage, because my empathy kicks in, all of my senses are in, and I use a conversational approach a lot of times with people, and even with guides, speaking with clients or doing a channeling. And with the channeling Setha, and I say Setha, and it may be confusing, but when they came to me, they said Setha, because Setha representing or giving honor to the feminine, and the importance that the feminine is also should also be included, and so they go by that. And Setha is the feminine aspect of it. So with that group, it is an advanced group of beings who would, since they come from a different place that would be alien to us, and it does feel different because it's not so emotional. They're giving information and guidance.
Now, this channeling with the Setha energy is very recent in terms of since you started your other project of the reconciliation project, I guess is what I would call it. So how did that come about that you began to receive these channel messages then?
It's funny. So it's if you've watched the first videos, you may know that my mother and I began this project in March. She was here just visiting, and we happened on it. I got a message from Eric Meadows, who wanted me to do this project, and I finally agreed. And over the course of 3 or 4 days, we did 14 sessions. So we just sat down and we did 14 sessions. And then when she left, it was time for me to get back to writing my regular work. And I sat down and I was looking at all the stuff I had to do, and I asked for some guidance, and like, God, where should I begin? What should my focus be? What's the priority? And immediately popped into my head was the question, why do you call me God? And that made me sit up and say, and I was really like, because that's what you are. So I realized at that point I needed to get some paper out and a pen, and I started writing. That was the chicken scratch that you can barely read. But it started then, and they gave me the first message. And I told them that I didn't have time to do this right now. But they gave me another message in May, and then one more message in June. And I promised them that by mid-July I would post the first one, and then I would continue being a voice for them. So I did post the first video July 15th as promised, and we'll post the next couple in the next month or 6 weeks. But that one was really, I think they realized I was open and available and took the opportunity to be heard.
And you did not actually have an awareness. I mean, I think there's kind of what you call channel being celebrities, in that they're the ones that a lot of people who are into like esoteric things. I think everyone who is out on YouTube and does anything with the law of attraction knows Abraham and Esther Hicks and is familiar with that, and also I think cryon channelings. But you said that you actually had not really an awareness of the
it's
sex
embarrassing. So it's embarrassing, but I'm sitting there and I get the name and I start freaking out. I'm like, oh my goodness, is he the bad guy in the Bible? Like that was my so
right,
after I finish, I start Googling. I'm like, oh my goodness, I hope I don't have some bad entity. And I'm like, okay, maybe not. And so I text my mom, and I'm like, Mom, I just got this, message from this group, and do you know anybody who knows anything about this? And I'm a little nervous. And, she eventually, after a text message or two, she calls me and says, Burnett, do you not know who this is? And I'm just like, no, Mom, enlighten me. And so, she told me who it was, and I decided not to look into prior channeled messages because I didn't want to distort my perception. I'm like, ignorance can be bliss. If they could decide to come to me now, she told me that, guess her name, Jane Roberts, channeled them back in like the 70s. I'm like, I was born in the 70s. Maybe they have a new message for a new age. And that's why, they came now and to me. And so I'm going to happily remain in my ignorant bubble about what was previously said. So I'm not distorted.
Well, you referenced them and they. Can you explain why you use a plural?
Yeah, because it's a entity group. It's a group of a collective consciousness or a group of beings who go by that name.
And that is also one of the connections that I have between hearing your story and observing your channeled message, that Scott also has a group entities. I guess you have called them the underwriters, if I'm correct.
Right. That's right.
And so Would you share then about your experience in connecting with that energy?
Yeah, so when I was doing the channeled writing, and you mentioned the automatic writing, and mine was definitely not automatic. It was similar to Burnett's, is that it was when I do written channeling, I'm totally me, and I'm just hearing the words in my head and writing them down. But so that's what it started with, and they didn't identify themselves that way. But then my partner Janet said, why don't you? Years later, when I met her, she said, why don't you try that again? And I did, and they introduced themselves as the underwriters, and it's kind of a joke. I'm a pretty jokey person, and it's kind of funny because it sounds like insurance people. But the joke, it had a lot to do with writing music, and now I understand that writing music is channeling for me too. It feels different than channeling entities, but the underwriters, it's more like Adrianna's channeling. That feels more similar to mine in that. There's really no emotion that comes through from the underwriters, at least. It's just very just facts, like you should do this and you should do that. And even when they said you're beautiful, even though they were loving phrases, it wasn't like I was feeling the love from them. It's like in order to get a proper channeling, I got to back up and get out of the way. I think Adrianna said that too. It's a flow. It's like if there's a little stream or a river going through, it's like small. It doesn't feel like a gigantic river, but like a fairly strong stream. If I get in the way, it slows down immediately. So I got to pull to the side. It's kind of like there's a tube, and I'm pulling myself to the sides of the tube and witnessing the energy going through, and just able to translate it. Or if I'm write it down if it's coming through in written form, and then if I'm talking, just kind of get out of the way and let the talking happen. And I always know when it's happening when it's like I get excited, my energy goes up. Although, like I said, I had an interesting, always new things happen the more people you meet and start reading. And last weekend I had a client who needed to hear something really direct, and I feel also from a male presence. And so this guide just, basically without telling me, just started talking through me. And so channeling, I know when channeling happens now, but it feels different with whoever's coming through or whatever's coming through.
So when this energy started coming through that you now know as the underwriters, were you like, wow, really? In terms of them being extra dimensional or off Earth is how I use extraterrestrial,
Well,
that awareness as it came through for you, what was that?
Well, the underwriters are not what we think of as extraterrestrial, because we think of extraterrestrials just being non-humans, but life forms in the physical, but living physically somewhere else. The underwriters are not that. They are a group of entities that represent themselves as like one, because that's all I could handle. I don't think I could handle all their different voices, so they just come together and give me information as one unit for a specific reason. And I think they told me at one point, it's like to enlighten people, it's to expand consciousness, and that's kind of my motto is I really want to help people expand their consciousness, and that's what they're there for. Now, Ave, the extraterrestrial, that came in when I posed a question to the underwriters, and I said, have I ever met aliens? Because I've been obsessed with aliens all my life. Just I'd always believe in aliens. And I said, well, have I ever met one? Will I meet one? What will it? I couldn't even get the next question out before this extremely sedating energy came in. This thick, slow energy. It's like trying to move through a thick soup, or almost like quicksand, but it wasn't scary or anything, but it was just really, really slow energy. And I started writing instead of my normal fast block lettering and large block lettering. I had to write in small letters. I could hardly move my pen. And he started talking to me, and I was like, no way. I said this Tuesday when we talked, or Monday rather, when we talked, or was it Tuesday? Tuesday. And but just for those that didn't hear that, so it started coming through, and it was crazy slow, and I was just in disbelief. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, he gave me capital A, capital V, colon. But I definitely had with both names of the underwriters, and I pronounced his name Abe. Both of them, I feel like the name's just for me. It's not. It's if he actually spoke, which I don't think he does, I wouldn't be able to pronounce his name anyway, probably. But it's more of an energy than anything. So, but he is physically alive, and he is physically on another planet. Where that planet is, I don't know. I get afraid even asking, but because he just says, it's about love. It is not about what planet are you on, and But I know that he's probably 8 feet tall and kind of lanky and dark brown or reddish skin. And a cool guy.
Right. It's so interesting because in our human perception and language, we kind of are clunky and bulky, so where we might say, oh, they're extraterrestrials because they're from other planets, but not Earth can encompass a lot of things. Like angels would be really technically extraterrestrial because they are not of the Earth matrix, but there's like extra dimensional beings too that you would say, well, that's a 12th dimensional expression, and it is beyond the scope of having a planetary name or energetic expression. And it gets really, expansive when you step beyond trying to frame it for our conception, such as names. Like you said, right now I'm identified as Joelle, and I have to go to court to change my name. I mean, we're very, very rigid here in the human experience, and there's a lot of energy that goes into then, say, our name in this understanding, but we're all coming to learn that we are much more than our name or human body in this particular incarnation anyway. So I just think it's exciting because I'm like you. I'm like, I always knew there were aliens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's what I... Go ahead.
Yes. So the craziest thing about channeling Abe is that he let me know from the very beginning it was not about all sci-fi cool stuff, which is I really like and I really wanted to know more about. It's all about love, and it's about he's here to help me align myself and love myself and be of service to others, and that's what it's about. And he just, every time I ask him about a problem, oh my God, he solves it in the most amazing ways. Or he gives me he explains the problem to me in the most amazing ways, and it's all about getting back in touch with my heart. Everything should be done through the heart all the time. That's every single thing. You make a decision. If you're making it from your heart, or to love yourself and love others, you cannot go wrong. And I was, he just drills it through me. And it's so cool that this alien dude can speak to me from God knows where and is able to get these beautiful messages across. And I just want to repeat what I said Tuesday too, is when I asked about his planet, whatever, and he said the most alien thing about my planet that you would find is how much we love each other and how much we love you.
And you said that that's kind of like his job. Like they choose to do that, which aligns with how they what they want to do. And so this is something that he wants to do, is help you and other humans who he connects with grow into love.
Right. And I think that I've channeled other entities I'm not aware of, but that there are many, many entities, spirits, energies, whatever, that are looking for. I think that we're beacons. When you start channeling, you're kind of like a beacon, and you can ask for specific things that come in. But I don't think I think it's an infinite number of entities that you can channel. I really do. I'm learning that. I feel like you just ask for what you need, ask for what you want to channel. But there are many ears out there. I think, it's not ears, it's just energy matching, but it's cool, yeah. And for Abe, he told me specifically it's for Earth. That's his job. That's what he likes to do, and that's how he came to that job, because it was a law of attraction in his planet. Everyone does the job that they do best, that they love the most.
I would like to sign up for that job. No, I might have already. You know what I'm saying?
He's probably frustrated with me because, number one, I had to change my vibration to try to match his. That took a while, and he's I'm sure he's very, very patient. And there's probably no such thing as lack of patience from him. But imagine I wouldn't have no patience if it was someone like me trying to get the word across.
Now, I know as a client of yours, I specifically asked for that connection during my psychic reading session with you. Is that something that, like, how are you and Abe working together then?
Well, most of the time now I'm doing short readings, and so it's hard to get really into channeling on a short reading. It's not impossible, because I do it sometimes, but it usually has to do with the client. If the client needs it, really, is what it is. If the client, how does the client need the information, and from whom? That all is not determined by me. I'm just an open vessel for the reading, and whatever I need to do to get the word across to the client from their loving beings that look after them, I do. So it's usually not channeling. I think also because a lot of people are afraid of channeling. But like when you ask for it, then you get it. So if you really want it, and I also think your guides probably say, is this the best thing for you, then you get it. So it's kind of the way I think it works with everything, really.
That's fascinating. And now, Burnett, your connection in with Seth and Setha is not something that's a client interaction, just like your Spirit Speaks sessions. That's very much like a project or a circumstance that's happening outside of professional services, correct?
Yes, correct. It's between, it's not been between clients and me and Seth or any other entity. Now, I will occasionally in the reading get the sense that a guy just wants to talk, and at that point I'll just let it flow through. And I usually know that's happening physically because I talk faster and quieter, and it's, which is probably really annoying for a client because they have to lean in. And but that's usually what happens.
And so your Seth and your others are more for, like, I guess, written publication, or as you're doing your YouTube channel for those that wind up searching the information that they provide in those channelings is available to the seekers, that I guess the vibration is drawing them to it.
I would say yes. And maybe that one day, I don't see myself doing the Spirit Speaks channeling sessions of the ancestors in the public venue, but the Setha, that may be something that on occasion I might do if that's something that I'm led to and they are in agreement with.
And I know that your Spirit Speaks channelings are really unique because the people who you're connecting with, they would not have like a living ancestor who would be coming to a psychic, naming them and saying, I want to connect with great Aunt Susie. These would be people who were probably so obscure that maybe they didn't even have a name if they were slaves, or their names were changed, or they were separated from their family unit. So I know in some of the sessions that you said, like the one lady whose family, I think she was maybe 14 years old when the family that owned her moved to Oregon, and that she knew that they moved there so that because of her, because they wanted her to not grow up under the Southern slavery anymore. And I think your mother asked, did she have children, and she knew where her children were down into, children's children down in the California area, but there would not be anybody who would seek to make the connection upward like you would find in the typical healing session. That's one of the things I think is so important then as to why your project is happening, because it gives voices to those who would not elsewise get to transition. Is there a transition into the light dynamic of your sessions? Do you feel releases after that?
We've had some who were already in the light who came back to talk, and we've had a few. I would probably say we've had a couple who I believe were earthbound, had not crossed over because they were in such pain. So I consider them in the limbo state and unable to forgive. And I would, Barb, who was the very first session we ever did, and my mother did try to give her some healing, and she's, even after the session, sending her Reiki and love and healing and continuing, sending her that love and light to help her heal, because she was in such a fragile position that she couldn't forgive herself, which is now key.
In your channel sessions, your mother acts as the questioner then, rather than you in those early sessions, definitely.
Yes.
So you were prompted, you were moved out of the way, the energy came in, and she asked then the energy questions, and you channeled them back. Now, Adrianna and Scott, neither of you have mentioned necessarily having a questioner or an interaction with a third person who helps you bring out messages. To my understanding, has that been your experience then? Or have you had a kind of question and answer to help you kind of maybe break past your own mental ideas of what is happening?
Yes.
Are you talking to me, Joelle?
Either of you, whichever one of you wants to tag in.
Break in and say, I liked everything that they're doing. I just feel kind of like displaced, I guess, because the energies that I work with are more of like guides, and then when I channel them, it's very much like I don't get the feeling like I'm supposed to share that information with anybody else, if that makes any sense, unless it comes up in a reading where it's like, okay, I'm part of this person's energy, or I'm part of this person's guide, because I do work with clients. It doesn't really come up much. Like, I know that I'm connected to ETs. It's more of just like when I was going through my sleep paralysis and stuff like that, like I would have these, from my experience, horrible, horrible times where I was kind of reaching out and going, all right, I need to deal with this aspect of myself. Like I had pushed it away in a sense, to be a mother and, at the time to be a wife, and this homemaker personality that I just really didn't feel like I fit. And I was having all these just, visitations and sleep paralysis experiences. And I remember lying in my bed one day going, okay, what is this? What's going on? Because, in my paralysis, I would see aliens, and they would just kind of like walk up to me. I would sit up in bed, and then they would touch me on my forehead, and I would fall back over. And I would just be blacked out and wake up the next morning and go kind of like, what was that? That felt real. Anyone that's researched that, I know that you talked about that on your show. And I remember lying in bed going, what is this? And that was one of the first times that I had channeled an ET energy. And from my experience, like I asked, you know, because you get on the forums and stuff, like I've been on searching, trying to figure out where, you know, this energy is coming from. And they say it's not important. It's not important. I know I have an Arcturian guide, but I'm at a place where it's just like names are not important. And it was very much displaced and non-emotional. And it was just like, this is your calling kind of feeling. So like in times where I really needed it, I have had that information channeled to me from these entities, but I can't tell you, you know, who they are, where they're from. Like I haven't delved that deep into it because my guides, and especially them, they're like, it's not important. You're connected to us. We help you. That's that. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like it's just not my path at the moment. So I get assistance from them at certain points when I need it, and when I don't, I don't. I'm sure Scott feels kind of the same way.
Well, it sounds like it's something you wouldn't necessarily be then resonating a vibration to say, I am open to you if you are extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional and want to connect with me. It seems like you would rather much be like, nah, I'm good, you know, because you did share, you know, you had some rather frightening experiences with the paralysis encounters.
Actually, it's funny, Joelle. It was very much the opposite. I was very much trying to connect, and I got the connection, and it came from them. It was more of, it's not important. I've tried several times to I guess clarify, and it's almost like this isn't, you know, your path. We're helping you. You're connected to us. You know, we work with you, but it's not important at this time, is the message that I keep receiving. But when I do need guidance, they'll come through. And it's not like you know, I don't want this, or I don't, you know, I'm very much curious, you know. The only thing that I could figure out was they are Arcturian. And one of my guys is Arcturian, you know. That was the only name that I could come up with. So other than that, it sounds more of like they telepathically communicate more so than they use language. So as far as asking for names, like I've asked for my guide's name before, and it was more of like a sound, like music or something, like a robotic kind of vibrational feeling plus sound that you would feel and hear at the same time. It was very strange. But in no way would I be able to transmute that into language.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like that hit a resonance for you, Scott, when she said that.
Well, it cracked me up. That's for sure. I you know, when I asked with what I got from Ave about his name is that he does, you know, like I said, that's a name for me to call him, and and it fits like, you know, growing up in the 70s and 80s and how you know, the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, it just kind of fits that, you know, A.V. colon. But what he told me about names is he said when you speak, when you don't speak and everything is telepathic, whatever, you when if I was to say, hey, you, and you're there in front of me, you know who the hell I'm talking about. It's just the two of us in a room. Mm-hmm. The hard part where I was going, well, how would you know if you two are having, it's just me and this other person, and we want to talk about a third person who's not in the room, how do we do that? And he said, you just think of that person, and the other person knows who you're thinking about. There's no name required there. There's no name whatsoever. I was like, wow, that's cool. There wouldn't be a name then. Because if I could just show you in your head who I'm thinking of, it doesn't matter. I mean, how descriptive could you be? You can't be any more descriptive than showing someone how they feel and what they look like all at once. And how to experience Bob, you know. And instead of saying, "Hey, I was with Bob the other day," you say, "Hey, I was with," and you feel Bob and you know Bob. So, it's a hell of a lot better than a name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, wow, I didn't know that about Bob. Maybe I shouldn't have known that.
That's
funny.
They might have TMI a lot over there in the alien world, you know, just way too much information about people.
Yeah, hey, the telepathic, you know, there's no veils of perception and filters, you know. Most of us would be pretty embarrassed if we could see if our true telepathic thoughts were broadcast. I think there have been a couple comedy movies that talk about, you know, what's really going on in the brain, but it does kind of cut to the chase of then, okay, there is no judgment. A lot of what I hear is that there is not judgment from that realm. Right. It's very much a compassionate, like, it's not even it is what it is. It's just being. And, you know, a lot of what people experience in the spirit realm in the traditional sense tends to be very judging. Higher, lower, less, more, righter, wronger, you know, whereas a lot of that linear evaluation is removed once you get to the higher evolved energies. That's comforting to me, you know, to consider. Now, Scott, do you ever have then like an intermediary type of question and answer session, or did you ever do that as you were coming online with your channeling?
With it, no. The only thing I did that was close to that was I did a group channeling. I think a couple of times. I want to do more of it, but it was definitely difficult because I went right from channeled writing and giving people readings with channeled writing, where they'd email me a question and then I would channel the answer, which was like 5 pages long and way too difficult.
Oh wow!
And so I went right from that into doing group channeling. And like Burnett said, my channeling at the beginning at least was really quiet. I mean, it was like, hey, I want to tell you. I mean, it was really kind of creepy, and hard to hear. And so just people, it was a group of friends, and they would pose questions to Ave, and he would answer, and that was so just those people were asking the questions versus me, or versus just channeling for a client without questions, just telling them what they need to know. So, you know, never had anyone ask me, you know, be the facilitator, so to speak, if that's what you mean.
Well, I'm asking that because one of the things that, you know, I highly recommend that everyone go and flex their muscles, go to the gym, work out, go to the psychic gym and work out, right? So if you feel like when you're writing that something that could be a channeled information, or that's something that you're like, you know what, I'm not writing this. This is coming from somewhere else. To do more of that. Don't stop doing it or push it to the back. Or if you hear that quiet voice, if you listen, then it becomes louder. And I think that exercises, like in a psychic development class, they always have you then do exercises with other people to externalize then, so that you begin to actually trust more internally. That, you know, if you're sitting there and someone is asking you a question and you're realizing, okay, I'm going to respond with my inner hearing, not my brain self, that as that conversation and question answer kind of evolves, it really does reinforce that this is not my personality, this is not me, and it's kind of like an exercise tool. What would you all say, like, let's start with Burnett, because I want to give people some real tools to start to open up to receive messages from even a loved one through a channeled experience or from angelic presences, if they're not ready to jump off the deep end into the extraterrestrial channeling, how would you advise someone, Burnett, to embark on exploring channeling as a tool of communication?
You know, I would probably say through writing first. I'm a writer, and I found that even as a child, I would write poetry or little songs, and it would be coming from a greater place, so to speak. And I think if people write, a part of them steps out of the way because, you know, even we just think we're being creative, it's free, and it's, you know, it's supposed to be liberating. So you kind of naturally step back because you're doing something that's supposed to be freeing. And so when you're writing, whether it's sitting down and saying, I'm going to write a poem, I'm going to write, you know, a paragraph about flowers, it doesn't really matter what it is, because you may start writing about one thing and then something else starts coming through eventually if you let it. But I want to make another comment, because as we were talking and listening to Scott and Adrianna, I thought about the fact that Scott says he writes music, Adrianna does children's books. I'm a writer, and that connection of so many people are channels that don't know it. They're writing, they're creating art, whether you're a visual artist, if you're a musical artist, a creative artist of any kind. It's a strong possibility you are already channeling. You're just channeling into an art form.
Yes.
And so it's not sitting there in front of someone and, you know, channeling a voice through of a specific message, you know, for that person, or being on stage and answering questions. But if you look at what you're writing, at what you're drawing, at what you're creating, it's a good chance that you are really channeling. You're just channeling to that art form.
Yes. We talked about that briefly during the interview on Tuesday, Scott. It's like one area of activity has the seal of approval. Oh, your muse being inspired. You're writing music. You're having a jam session. If you're playing jazz, you're improvising. You're creating this picture, and they'd be like, I was in the painting studio for hours, and I just left myself, and then this beautiful map. It's all signed as approved. Okay. But if you step then into another realm and say, well, you know, I was channeling an angel, a spirit, or an ancestor, then people are like, no, nope, can't happen, doesn't need to happen, shouldn't happen. But it really is, again, tapping into that higher, and acceptance is 9 tenths the problem. People have writer's block, or they're just not inspired. It's like, okay, you have to move aside, past the block. It's the same kind of thing of acceptance and allowance of that energy to go ahead and flow in that kind of river that Scott spoke of, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with Burnett about that. I think that's a really good way to get to describe how someone could get into channeling, is not just jump off the deep end and try to bring in some certain entity. And I really, too, I mean, things don't need to be scary, but you do need to ask for what you want and for what's good for you. So, and be very specific in that. Some people like to ask for things that are scary, and they like scary moves and stuff like that, but I would caution people not to do that. That put out the energy that you want. Yeah, put out the energy that you want to bring to you. And I think that's where people get kind of scared, is because there's like negative stuff there. Yeah, there's negative stuff out there. There's negative stuff out in the street too. I can attract some homeless guy, you know, that's angry. I see him all the time, and I could bring him over to me with my energy if I wanted to. But no, I walk by him, and everything's fine. So I think the spiritual world is the same thing. So just ask for what you really want. But I think that's a great idea to start with writing, with channel writing, because you get into the groove, you get into the zone, and I think the artistic zone. I'm a artist, a photographer, and a musician. So the artistic zone is the same, is channeling. I definitely believe that. And you can get into that and just see what comes in your head and start writing. I think that's awesome.
And I was advised to just first start to talk to your higher self. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does my higher self want to say to me right now? Because that's us. It's not anything external. It's just, say, a higher vibration experience of us. So that should be more comforting or safer, because a lot of times we're having a dialogue with ourselves anyway. We just kind of normalize it and say, well, it's my good angel, my bad angel. Or, you know, we'll say to ourselves, now, Joelle, why would you such and such, such and such, you know? But that is kind of a form of having a channel conversation at its simplest form. So start at home. That's what I said, start at home first.
Yeah.
Adrianna, what would you say for people who want to start to experience channeling?
You know, it's actually very interesting that you bring that up right before it's my turn. Because, well, when I get on the radio show, I always ask, you know, I set my intention, you know, as long as there's someone out there that gets some sort of information from what I'm saying, then my job is done, you know. And so I'm half in channel now, you know. But what I'm getting from my guides is what they're saying is, and I'm feeling a call to actually start teaching people just on a like personal level how to channel. And if they're channeling a certain way, how to adjust that, or very much teaching psychics how to channel in a different way or strengthen their channel. I would advise someone that's never done that before to actually pray. And I know that sounds very funny, and it's kind of like what you were saying with talking to your higher self, is just when you're praying, you're in a comfortable space, and you feel like you're talking to some being like God that's loving, or source that's loving, okay? So you're already like putting yourself in a safe space. And it's very much a listening feeling. You're stepping outside of yourself, and you're asking a question, or you're waiting for an answer. That kind of feeling, if you kind of understand what I'm saying, is I got prayer. So a lot of people that pray and they feel like they receive answers to their prayers, I mean, that's very similar to channeling, because you're in that listening frame of mind. It's like a switch gets turned. And then you feel that energy, that loving energy back to you. I would also advise, if you're not a person that would pray, hold on. Meditation is very good, and you can even meditate while you're driving. And what it is, it's just that it's an altered state of consciousness. It's not. I kind of get the call to clarify that meditation is not clearing your mind. It's more of an intense focus or an intense concentration. And I feel if you want to learn how to flex that muscle to get you to the point where channeling would be easier, concentrating on something like a blue star or a red square or a color or a shape while you are meditating, it's going to have the effect of everything, every thought in your brain is going to kind of fall away. So it's clearing your mind, but you're also focusing and flexing that muscle at the same time, to where I feel like what they're saying is you can use your imagination, create a space in your mind that you can go to that would be a safe space, whether it be a house or, you know, a riverbank or a garden. You can even be kind of like going up some stairs. Visualize yourself going up some stairs into a room, and whatever comes to you, whatever you receive, I mean, that's very much going to be a part of that receptive mode. It is going to be channeling. So it's very interesting how different people channel in different ways. And it's very much, you know, kind of like what Burnett was saying or what Scott was saying, finding your modality or your medium. Is it art? Is it music? Is it, are you clairaudient? Are you clairvoyant? Use what you know your gift is and build from there.
Well,
Is that
people
making
may
any
not
sense
know
to
what
you?
their gift is. Yes, I was just thinking, so it actually could be that a person is like, well, I never heard words in that space, but I saw images or I got just a knowing. Those are clairs too. You know, it doesn't have to look like one thing, because if you're clairsentient, you may just have then a feeling when you come out of that space, an inner knowing of which direction to go that you can articulate, but you're not hearing somebody tell you, Adrianna, go to the such and such, you know what I mean? So don't think too much about how it comes to you, just allow it. Now, I do have to contradict your guides to say, if you are in Atlanta traffic, people do not start meditating and go into the place. As a person who's been in rush hour traffic, I can clearly say, keep your eyes on the road. No, I just say, you always want to be safe and go to a place of awareness. A lot of us check out while we're driving. We'll wind up driving and then be like, oh, we're at our destination. How did I even get here? Because we're kind of in a routine of muscle memory. Your higher self keeps you protected. You know what I'm saying? But
that's very much like the modality I was trying to express was, how you're driving and you're in that mode where you're not thinking, but you are just kind of like you said, like muscle memory, or you're just an automatic pilot. That's an alpha brainwave state. And the alpha brainwave state is the state that's going to get you into contact with that. It's going to be, that's the state you're in when you're channeling. So that's just why I mentioned that. So if you're already in that alpha brainwave state and things come to you while you're driving, a lot of people that happens to. So it's just more of an organic way to know, hey, this is how I feel when I'm driving and I kind of lose touch of reality feeling. That's and this feels very similar to that. And that's maybe something that you can say, oh, okay, I know that feeling. I'm in channel.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
I love your answer.
The stairs. I love the stairs and going in the room. That is awesome. Totally awesome.
Well, I would definitely like to, Scott, do you have any other advice to people who want to channel in terms of other than setting your intention and what you're trying to connect to?
No. I think I really like what Adrianna had to say about it, because I was just talking about how to start in a general way, but I like how that she just channeled the answer about how to channel. You can't get any better than that. Sorry.
Right.
I cannot improve on that at all.
To agree. I mean, I loved her answer and what she was given that might help people coming from different, ways of spirituality, that they can find a path. And I love the idea of praying, because when you think about it, we probably all, before we start sessions, before we start readings, before we do this work, we do it automatically. We, set our intentions. Whether you pray or what you call it, you do that, and it's probably kind of automatic by this time for us. And so I'd like that you pull that back, and so it's not taken for granted that you do that.
Yeah.
Well, I would like for each of you to share how people can get in contact with you, because each of you do provide professional reading services, and I do know that Adrianna and I are working to develop a class that she will be making available through the Viberarian, which is a place to come for learning of all types. And we've got astrology classes, technology classes, Reiki classes, and hopefully soon then channeling and psychic development classes as well. And so I'm really excited about that. But for reading services, Adrianna, first, how would people contact you for that?
You can actually get in touch with me via email. My email is Adrianna, Adrianna, Wallace, Wallace, medium, medium, @yahoo.com. And then I have a work line. It is 678-368-1464. And you can also, my Instagram is the Adrianna Wallace. My Facebook is Adrianna Wallace. I'm sure it's not a very common name, so you can find me on social media pretty easily.
I think your page on Facebook is Adrianna Wallace Psychic Medium, which would be your business page, because you do have your personal page out there. But and all the posts that we've sent out about today's show, that link to your business page has been present. And what kinds of services then can people contact you for?
I was going to mention I am semi-technologically impaired, so my business page is very it needs to be updated. I'm outsourcing that at the moment, but my services, like I do house clearings. I'm kind of falling away from that just because I'm getting so busy lately doing phone readings. I do in-person sessions. Basically, it's just, I do tarot readings, but it's more recently Spirit has just told me put the tarot cards down, because it was a crutch at first and then it became a block. Divination is very much different than channeling, and I've found that when I try to do the tarot cards and channel at the same time, it's a stop, start scenario. And it's just really, if you want a tarot reading, I can do that. But I can also do mediumship readings, which is getting in touch with your guides or your angels, your loved ones who have passed, and getting information and sending, love, healing that way. I very much look at it as healing work and service work. So definitely you can, phone readings, house clearings, tarot readings.
Okay. And we are going to have a booking opportunity through the Viberarian Facebook page where people will be able to click to reach you to schedule a session. I'm really excited about that as well. Now, Burnett, you have a plethora of services that people can reach you for. Can you give out your information and the various projects that you have available for clients?
Sure. So the home for finding kind of everything that I do is my namesake website. That's BurnettSherman.com, BurnettSherman.com. And my work line is 404-939-5885. I am on social media. The link to my author intuitive coaching and healing page is in the link that Joelle sent out. And then I do integrative life coaching. And so most of my services have their own home on the web. So integrative life coaching, my Star Steps coaching is that's the name of it, and that's starstepscoaching.com. I do healing, including Reiki, Holy Fire Reiki, and I'm an Access Consciousness Bars practitioner, which I think is one of the most coolest modalities. And then, of course, mediumship and intuitive readings, and I'm also a pet communicator. So those are most of my services. And on the flip side, I also do creative coaching for those who are creative artists and breaking through some of those barriers. But you can always start at just BurnettSherman.com and then figure out where you want to go and how you want to find me. My Spirit Speaks with my mother, Rebecca, is SpiritSpeaksChannel.com. And on YouTube, it's also Spirit Speaks Channel. And there you'll find a lot of the more metaphysical services and our channeling sessions.
And I'm very excited because in a very short while, you are going to be featured on a new program that is coming out on the Viberarian Radio Network. You are the inaugural person who will be kicking off this show. It is the Pages in Stages project, and this basically is authors who are going to be reading from their works in serial format. So every week we'll get a few chapters of the story dropped on us so that we can be biting our nails from week to week to see what's going to happen to our protagonist. So it's going to be a good old fireside story hour that's going to be coming out, and Burnett is going to be sharing from some of her books, and she's got a book getting ready to be published, I think, later this fall. So hopefully this will be a wonderful segue from the first portion, or a novella, I think, maybe we talked about.
Yes.
Stay tuned for that, because really, being a librarian in my former life before emerging to the Viberarian, I love books. And anytime I can listen to a story, an audio book, or read it myself, which 9 times out of 10 I haven't had as much time as I want to be able to read it. So the fact that it will be available as a podcast and through the show on a weekly basis is really exciting. So I'm very happy about that.
Me too. Woo!
Yay. And now, so Scott, you have several things going as well. In addition to your psychic services, you have a couple other ways that people can connect with you to work with your gifts.
Yes. So first of all, I have ScottHallIntuitive.com. That's SCH. No, it's not. If I could spell my name properly. It is not SCH. I assure you. It is SCOTTHALL. Those are very difficult names. Intuitive.com. And then you can reach me for readings through also on through my email, which is scotthall@mindspring.com. That's MINDSPRING. And my phone number is 404-808-1769. And then so I offer, those are different ways to contact me to get, you can have in-person 60-minute reading, and that's, basically a psychic reading. It might be channeling in there and mediumship as well. And then I also do phone readings, 30 and 60-minute phone readings. I do house clearings with my wonderful partner, very experienced and talented partner, Janet Raftis. And one of the cooler things, I do intuitive art. It's like a reading where I create art through reading you, and then I give you a piece of art with an actual written reading. So that's on my website as well. And then also I am, like I said, a photographer and artist, and I have teach photography. I teach smartphone photography. It's called the Smartphone Photo Class. I teach that on the Beltline, and I also do individual photography instructions for people with DSLRs who want to be pro photographers. I can teach them how to be pro art photographer like I am. And all that can be found on ScottHallArtist.com. And that's about it, boy.
Well, your Instagram feed is beautiful for your photography. And what is that?
That's ASH Scott Hall.
Yes, and I highly recommend you look at that because it will uplift you. I always am like, oh, wow. I definitely love seeing your pictures, and I can definitely tell you're a pro. I need to up my game up, so I need to take your class. But
yeah, take a class.
Well, first of all, you get to stroll along the Beltline here in Atlanta, which is a beautiful place as well. So I thank all of you for this conversation this evening. Now, on next week on the Psychic Inside, the guest is going to be Pink Bella of Pink Bella Aloha Therapy. She is a Blu-ray quantum healer and twin flame teacher. And you can check out her YouTube channel. She has a huge following out there. She's been leading the way for twin flames who have been coming into union as this divine love energy has been coming on the planet. and she's got a fascinating story to tell. And then on Thursday, our topic is actually going to be twin flames and divine lovers and partners. And she will be back as one of the panelists, as well as a couple other twin flame teachers and experts that I'm waiting to get them confirmed. But it's going to be great. So I just love that we can have these conversations every week, and that you all took the time to join me. I know it was rather last minute because I wasn't sure if we were going to get all the pieces together for this topic this evening. So I appreciate each of you for clearing your schedule and for sharing your knowledge and experiences for everybody on the show tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for creating
this
space, Joelle. Thank you for making this happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's my
wonderful.
honor. It is my honor. So till next week, I wish all of you all of the love and bountiful blessings that you can hold to overflowing, and that all of your manifestations uplift you, and that you are living a life full of joy and laughter. Namaste.
Namaste.